Welcome to Roll for Crit. We've already reached the end of the first month of 2022, and while plenty of things have happened, here we're going to tell you what happened in the last month in the world of tabletop gaming.
Board game juggernaut Asmodee has been bought and sold to Embracer Group, another conglomerate company that previously had its fingers in the world of video games, owns such companies as THQ and Gearbox, and now they also have Asmodee on their belt. Asmodee, of course, is the giant board game company that owns a lot of huge titles, including Catan and now Exploding Kittens, and many, many hundreds of other, some of the most popular games out there. They have been slowly acquiring more and more of these other publishers over the years, and now they themselves have been acquired for a sale that went to about 2.75 billion euros, which is a pretty big price tag. But Embracer Group thinks that this will be worth it, of course, to increase their stock value, their company value, and to now have their hands in the tabletop world as well as the digital gaming sphere. According to them, the current CEO of Asmodee is still going to be hanging on, and the company will be operating as it did before this transaction. We also learned recently that Embracer Group now effectively owns the online board games retail store Miniature Market, as well as Asmodee quietly purchased that website just a few months ago. This is another story of Asmodee getting more things and now something even bigger. There's always a bigger fish opening its mouth and also eating up Asmodee.
Now, I think what's interesting now, looking back at this story, isn't just the Asmodee, but looking at it with the Microsoft purchase of Activision Blizzard. Because seeing that, it reminds me of how there were, at least in the video game, it's already happened where it's like Microsoft owns all these companies, and then Sony owns these, Ubisoft owns these and stuff. So I'm wondering if we're going to start seeing that, though the only rival I could think of to Asmodee in terms of that kind of giant conglomerate would be Hasbro. But with the miniature market thing, even though we haven't seen anything now, but do you think we're going to start seeing things like if you want to get this game, you have to buy it through that marketplace, or that's where you're most reliably get it? And with things like Board Game Arena around, would that be the only place to play the digital version?
Yeah, digital versions might be affected first and foremost, I would guess. I would be pretty surprised to see them try to make any kind of exclusives through storefronts right now. But who knows? As things go along, that could happen. But yeah, certainly board games are not the only industry in which giant companies buy up other giant companies. I mean, we don't even need to talk about Disney as well. I do think Asmodee, I think more so than Microsoft is into video games, Asmodee feels more like a Disney to me in that they own such a significant percentage of the popular board games that, it's, to me, and I think a lot of people, somewhat alarming and also just impressive. It's just kind of like from its sheer size and everything they have, it's a little bit awe-inspiring and awe in a good or a bad way.
It's always one of those things that is very worrisome from our point of view because, one, we don't have all the details. We don't see how the sausage is made. But we've seen ways how this is done well sometimes, such as being able to conglomerate most of the Marvel characters back together so they can be in movies.
Yeah, that was a silver lining.
I'm saying, I'm getting to the bad part.
Okay,
But, then we see these companies being able to either just ignore a property or studio, like the buy up a studio and you'll never see that company release something ever again. Or maybe they change it in ways that aren't for the best.
Yeah, I mean, it puts them into a position of power, right? Which means they have the power now to make changes, increase prices, like you said, make things exclusive, and there's less competition to go their way. We don't need to explain monopolies to everybody out there. You're board gamers, you should know about that sort of thing. But it is a big thing, and now Embracer Group owns Asmodee, so now it's their problem to worry about all that stuff. We'll see if any of their experience, from the other gaming world comes into play in this gaming world, and if Asmodee does in fact change any of its habits or practices going forward until the next big company buys Embracer Group.
Recently, the digital version of Pandemic has been silently being taken off digital platforms. It originally started off with Steam, and unfortunately, by the time you're listening to this, I believe it should be taken off all other platforms, the last one being the Microsoft Store and the Nintendo Switch. Recently, they have said that it's because they felt that it wasn't up to par anymore compared to maybe other digital board games, and with the popularity of Pandemic, it deserved to be up to date. Now, it's still going to be available on Board Game Arena, which is technically a little different. It's not a digital version of it. It's more of a digital adaptation of a board game, but we'll have to wait and see whether we'll see Pandemic return to digital stores as its own video game, and whether this will include all the expansions as well as maybe all the other versions of Pandemic.
Yeah, they said it's too old, we got to get rid of it, but they didn't actually announce any plans to make a new one. So it remains to be seen if we will be getting some kind of special deluxe, really pretty looking version of Digital Pandemic. I can't I don't remember if I've had personal experience with the Pandemic app, but I can't imagine what the Pandemic really would need. Like if I would play that and I would really feel like, yeah, this is so outdated. I mean, isn't it just Pandemic? What do they feel it's lacking?
The optimist me, like I said, I think it's more of to make it so it can be something where you buy the original game. Then you can add in, Cthulhu or the Dutch one, like all the different versions. Mm-hmm. So it's a bit more of a weird piecemeal kind of thing. The pessimist in me.
That's the optimist.
The optimist in me is because they're designing it for all the different Pandemic versions within, of course, new bells and whistles and stuff.
So redoing the code from the ground up.
Yes.
Okay.
The pessimist in me is just funneling people to Board Game Arena. Not that Board Game Arena is bad. It's just I do sort of like the sort of standalone one-time purchase things. In particular, I've been messing around a little bit with the Oink games that released on Switch. And it looks like for now designed to be like that, where they might later put up other ones. And I like that idea because it's not subscription. It's that, I don't like that one, but I like this one. So you can buy the ones that you like. And it makes sense because it's the Oink collection, the Pandemic family, it's not you're not grabbing from multiple different publishers or even multiple different genres under a publisher.
Yeah, I mean, it would be interesting if they relaunched it in some way like that. Maybe they want to do a big story mode or advanced challenges or something. They just didn't feel like they could
the legacy games
do as a patch. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if they would do that because I don't know if they would take away too much from the sales of the board tabletop physical version, but I don't know. They could do it. I mean, Gloomhaven has a digital version. They could do something like that. But yeah, it's I have to imagine that whatever they're going to do going forward, the reason behind this was there was a way for them to make more money. At the end of the day, that's always the reason a company does anything. So I don't know. We'll see if we actually get a new Pandemic going forward. But for now, like you said, Board Game Arena, I guess, is the place. If you do play a lot of board games digitally, then you're probably familiar with Tabletop Simulator, which is a pretty good way to play a lot of different board games online in a digital realm with people who aren't in the same place as you. It's gotten a lot of use, especially since the pandemic. And recently there was kind of some controversy dealing with Tabletop Simulator, specifically their global chat. A game designer by the name of Zoe Allred had posted in this chat and made mention of their sexuality at a few different points and found that they had been moderated or those messages were deleted. Tabletop Simulator responded by saying that they simply flagged any discussions of sexual orientation or anything related to that nature, which seemed like kind of a red flag to a lot of people. And in all the hubbub and all the discussion and the backlash, ultimately now Tabletop Simulator decided to remove their chat completely. They also made a statement apologizing, and they did make a donation of $10,000 to a transgender equality organization. They're also trying to highlight some LGBTQ designers as well on their website and through their program. But ultimately, their solution to this was to take the chat and just axe it completely. So right now, you cannot talk. If you're playing Tabletop Simulator, you're trying to set up a game, you're going to have to maybe try Discord or Reddit or just click on a lobby and hope that there's room for you in there somewhere. But that, it's not a great look for them. And I do think their statement was well organized. It maybe would be nice if in the future they bring the chat back with different moderation techniques. But right now, it doesn't sound like they have plans to do that. I think it's just gone forever.
Yeah, unfortunately, this is something I think we're still, well, I mean, maybe we'll always be trying to get through these growing pains on the internet of not just simply who's there, but also the moderations. I've seen it multiple times pop up every now and then of like, oh, we're having problems with moderators in this Discord or on this subreddit. And I don't know how, even like Facebook, I know they literally have a council of people from around the world that deal with it, whether someone needs to get a permanent ban or this kind of ban. And that just becomes a whole very confusing, fun message where you deal with different cultural views and stuff. So I feel if they're going to bring back a global chat like that, that is free type, not just looking for players. I feel they got to have not just moderated, but almost like a council that goes on the back and approves or disapproves either moderators or if you can report, so to speak. It's a very challenging process, and I'm glad I'm not one in charge of it.
Yeah, it does sound like there probably wasn't a lot of oversight for whoever these moderators were, and they didn't say that any kind of action was going to be taken against these moderators either. None of that was discussed. But this feels like a Band-Aid to me. Mm-hmm. It's not. They didn't really fix anything. They just said, "Well, just get rid of it so that you can't complain if there is nothing there."
Apparently, they also agree they don't want to be in charge of it.
Yeah, nobody wants this job, this position, but it's interesting, and it's another, like you said, unfortunate. It's a growing pain, not just on the technological side, but on the social side of our community, the gaming community online, as everybody tries to feel these things out and be nice to each other, ideally.
Well, that would be the hope. Yeah. The Walking Dead was a popular comic that became a very popular TV show that also spread its influence in the tabletop area, be it board games, card games, and also miniatures. The Walking Dead miniature game from Mantic Games unfortunately has been announced it's coming to an end. This miniatures game usually involved you playing as characters throughout the show and series, as well as zombies walking around and causing problems. Now, they said they're going to be removing the models from their website March 31st this year. So this really is your last chance to buy up on whatever models you are missing or whatever you need. Now, as I've seen with other communities where the game has come to a close, I would not be shocked if there's still going to be a subreddit around that keeps the game alive, even maybe making up rules and adjustments on their own, but it won't be the official rules. And like I said, much harder to come across things. And I can understand why there's only so much you can do there in the Walking Dead world. It's not nearly like nothing against it, but it's nothing like where they can just hop to a new dimension or planet and come up with something or weird superpower. It's very grounded in our timeline. So I can imagine there's only so much that they can explore there that feels still Walking Dead.
Really is. It's grounded in our timeline in many different ways. Apocalyptic, the dead rising. Yes, it's pretty much the way it is in reality. It sounded like from their statement that they said that we just kind of, they exhausted the story options. They did all the locations, all the characters they wanted to get in there. They did get in there. I'd also have to imagine that, Mantic Games has been pretty successful and they've had some pretty big licenses, but maybe there's a good chance they have some new license maybe that they just want to devote their resources to.
I mean, keeping up a miniatures game is very difficult from their side. I mean, I've looked at other ones, you can't always keep up certain models. So even ones that are still going strong today, like Warhammer 40K, which is probably one of the quintessential war model games out there. I know there are things I've heard like this model's not print anymore, or this one, or this model's technically in print, but they all look terrible.
Right.
So I can only imagine that, like you said, when you have so many popular IPs, if one of them is mostly exhausted, you're like, this might be a good time to put a bookender on it.
Yeah, it's maybe a lesson the TV show or comic book should have learned. Go out on a high note instead of just dragging on forever and ever. Our last little tidbit brings us back to Kickstarter, which of course is a huge platform for tabletop games. They are also currently reworking their platform to be part of the blockchain, but that's not necessarily related to the board game side of it. Rather, what I'll tell you about is a little thing called Zine Quest. Zine Quest is an event that usually took place in February each year and allowed indie developers a chance to show off their zine RPGs, small RPGs, booklets that could have been wholly original RPGs with rules all to themselves, or maybe modules or supplements for existing games or systems. And those were usually in the form of these small $5, $10 little zines that you could get digitally or as a cute little book that you could order from the publisher themselves. This year, Kickstarter has announced that Zine Quest will be taking place in August instead of February, so as it will coincide with Gen Con of this year, which is currently still going on. I believe tickets are on sale right now. That has, resulted in some controversy from creators of these zines who say that they would rather have their sales promoted in February, a month when there isn't as much competition, versus August when everyone's preoccupied with Gen Con and spending a lot of money on new projects or new games either at the show or just that they're getting hyped about, they're pre-ordering at home. So we don't know exactly the real reasons as to why they've made this decision or how it benefits them, but theoretically, I guess they're hoping that maybe they'll be able to promote Zine Quest at Gen Con and during Gen Con and maybe get more exposure that way.
If that is the case, I'd have to disagree, not with you thinking that, but with their thought process. Because to me, if you had it in February, for example, remember, these zines are like small books, then you probably can get some of them at a booth by Gen Con comes. So you still get the advertisement and the space to breathe in the Kickstarter and the board game Kickstarter, which is extremely popular. Kickstarter's done very well in the board game area, and board games do very well in Kickstarter. But putting it during Gen Con, to me, like, I don't think anyone has been listening. They're wanting to usually hear what Fantasy Flight has to offer, what maybe the biggest RPGs, Dungeons & Dragons or Pathfinder, are doing. So to me, I imagine this is less about honestly supporting Zine Quest and more about maybe they want to open space in February for something else. Yeah. Once again, pessimistic version.
Yeah. I mean, well, it's just, that is kind of what you have to try to come up with a reason for it, because it does seem like it doesn't make that much sense on the face of it. But maybe, I don't know, maybe
they're testing it.
Yeah.
Maybe. And then, next year, like, we're back to February, everybody.
It is kind of weird because it just feels like such a thing that, this is like a niche of a niche. Like, I don't know how many people really even knew about Zine Quest outside of this community, but maybe that's why they're testing things. Maybe they want it to be bigger.
I mean, like I said, that is very possible. But I don't think it's like putting out your movie right around when Marvel movie is about to be released.
Right.
Doesn't seem like a good move.
Regardless, it's the move they're making. So if you want to take part in Zine Quest and support it, then mark it on your calendars for August, because that's when you're going to be seeing all these zines go up on Kickstarter.
Those are the major news stories for the month of January. Let us know what your thoughts on this. Are you maybe just as terrified as we are whenever we hear about large companies buying and eating each other up? And is there something we're missing from the Zine Quest move that makes it a brilliant tactical decision? You can let us know in those comments down below.
Yeah, comment, give us your feedback on any and all of these news stories. Let us know how your 2022 has been starting off. What games you've been playing. What have you been looking forward to? What news stories do you think are going to break out this year? Let it all out there down in that comments section. Till next time, I'm Jonathan.
I'm Will.
And this was Roll for Crit. Thanks for watching. Why not like the video and subscribe to our channel? Maybe even ring that bell for us. We're also on Patreon. If you want to go over there, you can support us for just a few dollars a month and get some cool rewards in exchange for that. And we have a merch store. If you're looking for a way to show off your Roll for Crit love on t-shirts, we've got new designs coming out every so often. You don't want to miss any of those. So check out all those links in the description down below.